My husband, he's a cheater. I found it out after a long time, and guys, this goes back for a while. I'm talking years. So what do I decide to do? I want a bit of revenge, and I'm going to be petty. So I get the whole town to turn against this so-called family that does so much for the town, blah, blah, blah. And I hit them with something incredible that you won't believe. And now I'm going to tell you what I did. I'm 37 and female, and I must admit that I've always been a little suspicious of my husband and his family. Though these emotions took some time to start, they've managed to stay despite their behavior and reactions to everything that happened in my life. I've tried creating distance between them and I. Not so with my husband, though, but it's not worked out too well. There have always been things that eventually made me feel uncomfortable with some things. I'm unsure if I can explain anything without going back in time, but I will do my best. Yes, I've grown more suspicious as of lately, but I've been careful too. Even though I did not entirely act on these suspicions, considering how much I've loved Smith, a 38-year-old male, since our college days, however, I kept some things in consideration before we agreed on marriage. What these conditions are and why I placed them, and I'll let you know as we get through this. Let me give you a bit of a brief understanding of my relationship with my husband and the 3 members of his family first. Smith and I met in the 2nd semester of our graduation and soon picked up our friendship. It helped that Smith was not the sort of man I hated. His behavior and mannerisms were something to die for. He was nice, soft-spoken, and most of all, definitely into me. Because his interest in me was so obvious and mine and his, it was easier to overlook some faults in him. Of course, he has never been perfect, but he was pretty close to it. Although I do not want to make assumptions, that was why it was easier for my parents to agree to our marriage, too. They liked him, and you could tell that. Yes, even though it's true that they were also the ones who advised me to be cautious around him. However, Smith has been a pretty good husband, and even now I have reasons to admire him for his personality, even though things are no longer the way that they used to be. As months passed and our friendship grew, we hinted at dating. Before we knew it, we were already a year into our romantic relationship. Because my family was so accepting of him, the ship sailed smoothly from my side. On Smith's side, though, things were a lot different. They were really the opposite. It was easier to overlook these issues and focus on ourselves when it first began. It was easy to. We had our studies to focus on and our spare time our relationship. After all, if we wanted to be together and we were good for each other, petty reasons did not really matter much. However, as time passed, I realized the importance of Smith's parents' opinion and how he viewed me and our relationship in general. Perhaps that is why I've grown suspicious of him. I'm not really sure. One of the reasons this came out in the first place was perhaps when we met with his parents, and at his mother's call, he changed his opinions on something sensitive right away. This transition from my husband to her son was so smooth that I had to take a break to understand. However, we had already married and had Samantha, our 9-year-old. It was no longer an easy task to break away from our little quarrels. We had our baby to look after, you know. However, that was not the end of anything. It continued, and it continues to this day. So he no longer is just suspicious, but also annoying. The later emotion is bitter for me to digest because it was Smith who had stood up for our relationship when his parents were throwing a tantrum over the idea of him marrying me. I still remember those days so well. Perhaps that's why I feel stupid now. How did I not think that the reason they approved of our marriage would follow us into the future? By now, you already have an idea that it was first not approved, and then it was. I'll tell you why that happened. That will surely make me sound dumb that I married Smith even after that, and a few weeks after his parents rejected our marriage first, they suddenly changed their tone. This transition was sudden, and it was not until Smith informed his parents about my economic status that they approved our marriage. Simple as that. Now, I know what you're thinking. That was a huge red flag, right? However, I did not know this fact years into our marriage. I remember Smith's parents disapproving of our match one day, and then just approving of it on another. On a Saturday, he came and claimed he could convince his parents, and by the time he returned, I had already received a call from his mother, Clara. Instead of, my name, her first words were my future daughter-in-law. I actually remember everything about that vividly because it was monumental for me, but who knew she was plotting something else entirely? I did not. During that, Smith's sister, Amelia, got close to me. It felt nice to me, one step closer to understanding the family my husband hails from. Amelia is somewhat eccentric, but still reasonable enough. That is why, when she brought the idea of a possible business in front of me, I encouraged her. As a business major, I had enough suggestions and advice to give her. I'd give her acute information and understanding, and she seemed like she was taking it all in. Eventually, as I had initially expected, she asked for monetary help. After discussing it with Smith, I agreed to lend her some money. In the beginning, it seemed to work. The business had a mild opening, but it showed potential. However, my parents feared there was a good chance I would experience something like that frequently after marriage, so they advised me to sign a prenup before marrying Smith, and I followed their advice. Honestly, I'm glad that I did. Amelia's business eventually flopped, and she could not give me anything because she had nothing to begin with. Before the second year of my married life was even over, Amelia had stopped contacting me the way that she did before. I often talked about it with Smith, but all I got were excuses and requests to forget it, because he was sure his sister would return the money in due time. There was no paperwork. I had no time to prepare for anything. Besides, I considered her a family member, and that was a genuine help. All I could do was wait and hope the same way Smith did. Did it work? No, obviously. If anything happened after that, it was the newfound tension between Smith and me. 3 years on, he stopped talking about it altogether, and essentially, he wanted me to forget about it too. For the most part, I did, because Amelia's parents did not know about it, they did not talk about it either, and slowly, I carried on with my life too. Even so, whenever we met, I asked about my money, and every time she promised she would return the moment she got something. Years passed, and I vowed to not help her again. It was easy to follow through because my boutique chain was doing well, and I got pregnant with Samantha, and then Alexa, who is 7. Life changed as I knew it, and I had a lot to worry about than just Amelia and her hollow promises. Eventually it all stopped, though. Amelia and I became just another relative for each other, and Smith and I got busy with our 2 kids. In the beginning, Smith's attitude seemed manageable, and despite being promoted, he looked for every opportunity to spend time with the babies. Sometimes he even clocked out of his job early. It seemed promising, and I had hoped for our future. Eventually, like everything else, it soon ended. At first, it was about Smith's parents. Clara has diabetes, and Johnson, 57, my father-in-law, has asthma. You get the idea of how they became Smith's priority. I've never really been upset about that, even though Clara and Johnson are not the best people to be around. They're still Smith's parents, you know. If you add their diseases to the equation, the situation becomes sad and pathetic. It sounded mean. That is because by then I knew why my in-laws had agreed to our marriage. You keep your distance from people like that, all right? I did the same, even though I shared a similar concern with Smith about their health issues, and Smith never asked for monetary help from me. He managed his parents almost entirely by himself, but sometimes, however, I did help with the money and frequent hospital trips. It reflected on our financial status quite a bit, but that was still manageable. Even though Smith did not get as much time to spend with the kids, he adjusted his remaining hours for us. Until then, it was still acceptable. After that, he got busy with his work too, and so, with work on one hand and parents on the other, he did not find much time for any of us. I would have accepted it because I'm busy too. But he stopped taking care of the kids almost immediately, and yes, that irked me. We often had arguments about it, but each time, he found something to reason him out of his fatherly responsibilities. I Had to adjust my time, and then I almost started working from home. Someone among the two of us had to take care of the kids, and Smith had refused to be the one. It brought tension between us, and this tension stays to this day, and what makes me upset is that Smith does not do anything to make this work. Even on the weekends, he wastes the day by sleeping the 2 days he's off, and neither Samantha nor Alexa try to approach him, and precisely because he does not take well to their demands. Another huge red flag, you must think. I agree to that, yes it is, and a few days or a few weeks, I should say, are acceptable. I could even accept a couple months even, but this has been going on for years now. In that situation, yes, this must look like a bad marriage, but what will come around, because I have been feeling that more lately? The mere fact that Amelia has returned in the middle of it all just to ask for another monetary help ruined it further. On top of it all, Smith said and did things to emotionally blackmail me so that I could lend her money again. This entire situation is so bizarre. Let me start from the beginning, though. So, after her business flopped, Amelia stopped contacting me for the most part. Whenever we met at family gatherings or holidays, she avoided me. Years after that, she returns to ask me for some money. This time, it's not about wanting to open a business, but now she wants to buy land that she claims has the most potential. I cannot give you the exact details, but no. There is life potential in that barren land. Little of that. There's no transportation services near it, nothing, and there's no supermarkets or even isolated shops. The nearest town is 50 minutes away. That's not the kind of land you can go buy and just hope for some retribution. I refused, and did it so firmly that Smith fought twice with me, and Amelia forced me to talk several times about it too. If I have to be honest with everybody, I'll admit that I will not be surprised if this reaches my in-laws too. After all, if not for them, then I would not have married Smith. I hope I sound as sarcastic as I felt writing that. Honestly, I'm glad my parents convinced me to sign that prenup. This family is driving me crazy, and I'll update you when something happens again. Until then, be safe from your greedy and manipulative relatives. Be safe, folks. Update number 1. Alright, remember when I said last time that this will eventually reach my in-laws? Well, big news! It has! Soon after I refused Amelia money for the 9th time, Clara and Johnson reached our home to talk it over for dinner. They reasoned their visit concerned Samantha and Alexa. I knew it had nothing to do with the kids, but I kept it to myself. Clara and I cooked dinner and talked about simple things, and at that hour, she did not hint that she wanted to discuss Amelia's situation, and for my part, I did not bring that up either. Eventually, it came out on its own. Smith was already not talking to me, so it was not a big surprise that my in-laws began the conversation from that point. Slowly but surely, the conversation drifted to the financial situation at hand. Since Amelia was absent, there was no one to sell her idea about the land. It was easier for me to prove my point, and under their scrutiny I defended myself quite well, I'd say. What did Smith do throughout the length of this hour-long conversation? He just sat there, silently, eating his food as if his wife was not getting absolutely destroyed for pointing out all the right reasons for the situation. It was also then I found neither Clara nor Johnson knew about Amelia. That means they did not know about their monetary help that she received from me. It was the most fantastical thing for me. How could they not know what their daughter had planned? This revelation came suddenly too, and they insisted that I helped Amelia this time, and that they'll make sure she pays me back in due time. Dumbfounded, I asked them how they could claim something like that with such surety when Amelia had not even paid the previous one. The look on their face was absolutely something, I'll tell ya. When they burst asking me how could I say something like that, I had to explain to them it was then when Smith affirmed my words, then they sat down in silence for a while, and I believed that they would stop there, but they absolutely did not. Well, 5 minutes later, they were back at it, and this time they used an absolute different tactic. This time they said they would help Amelia pay back in time, and I still refused. Both Clara and Johnson left upset. I was fuming within, but I managed to control myself for the most part. Smith, on the other hand, bid them farewell and spent the rest of the night arguing with me. I refused to entertain his whims and his claims, and it helped somewhat, yes, but every time he screamed, I felt scared for our daughters. It felt like it was no longer between his family and me, but also my daughters. It was not a pleasant thing to admit, and in all these years I've known Smith, it's only now that his behavior has gotten worse. He is often irritated and annoyed, and he no longer wants to stay at home. Nothing about this is acceptable, and I do realize that. That is why I have to refuse to budge. Amelia often comes home these days, and she usually spends her day taking care of my daughters. I know what this all means, so although I thank her for her help, I also keep my distance. I agree this emotional and mental torture is getting on my nerves, yes. That is why I informed my lawyer about absolutely everything, and my parents agreed I needed to be ready for everything, but to be very honest, I have realized I would separate myself from Smith for a while, and then wait out some more deal with more unnecessary confrontations. Guys, I'll come back with whatever happens from now on. Update number 2. I thought my problems ended with Smith's parents and his sister. Unfortunately, I've realized this is a bigger mess than anything I've ever dealt with. Suddenly, Smith's lack of interest in our girls and his disinterest in family affairs makes sense to me. What is more interesting, however, is that he managed to keep me in the dark for 3 years. That's right. I'm unsure I can explain what I feel right now, and I'm sure my explanation will not be coherent either. So, here we go. I've discovered Smith has been cheating on me for 3 years now. His partner of interest, well, it's a colleague of his own. A woman a couple years younger than I am, and I don't know how much about her, except that she's beautiful. However, her behavior is so dumb and ridiculous. She knew Smith was a married man, and she knew that he had children. Even then, both people kept their affair going until karma eventually caught up. How did I find out? You'll not believe me when I say it was through Amelia. I am unsure how she found it, but she had the proof when she informed me about the details. It began when she came to our home in the Smith's absence to again ask for a bit of money. I had already refused, but she had not stopped until then. Even though she agreed to tell me something if I gave her the money, I was hesitant, but she insisted I needed to know the truth to make smarter decisions in life. I was unsure what she wanted to say, but I was still a bit skeptical. It was not until she revealed it had something to do with Smith that I asked her to give me time to think about it. It was not only about money, but also about my husband. I had to be careful. I talked to my parents first, and they expressed their hesitation about her. I agreed, but accepted that I wanted to know what he had done. They could not do anything about my curiosity, so I agreed to lend her a small portion of what she had initially asked before letting her know my decision. I tried to talk about it with Smith. I even asked him if there was something that he wanted to tell me. He looked a bit spooked, but said he had nothing to say. I decided right then and there that I would go as planned. I gave her the money, and Amelia gave me the truth. Truth, as I told you at the beginning of this update, is that Smith has been lying to me for 3 years now. He's dating a female colleague from his department, and that is the culmination of all the years I've spent mending and making his relationship work. Although I know what to do after this and how this will harm my daughters, I'll have to take some time off to think this over. I know it'll take a bit of time to get over this, but I'm willing to put my children first. All I know is that Smith means harm, and thank goodness he's driven away his daughters by his behavior. It'll only be a bit easier. I'll let you know about my next step, and until then, let me give myself a break. Update number 3. I confronted Smith about it. It was absolutely not easy at all, but I'm glad that it's over. Well, how did it go? Was there any screaming matches between us? Yes, there was. Although for the most part, I did the most screaming between us, and he considered himself a cheater. Did not speak about it at all. He just nodded when he needed to and apologized when he felt like it was required. You could feel the fear in him, though, but overall, he did little to defend himself, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. In a way, that was easier. I did not have to delude myself any longer, and there was no complications and no lies spoken straight to my face. He accepted. He was embarrassed and ashamed to admit it that he had been seeing a woman for the past 3 years. He even claimed he tried to stop it, thinking of our daughters and me, but he simply could not. He felt alone. He reasoned. There was so much stress at the job and his parents' sickness that he needed to vent it somewhere. So he started with an affair of his female colleague and then went with it. This female colleague is equally responsible, though, for she knew that she, was ruining a family of 3. Overall, none of us won. I lost a man I believed to be the most genuine, even if he was not perfect, and he lost his family. I sarcastically asked him if this affair had resolved any conflicts in his life. His face was indeed something to see. If this affair has done anything, it was that it has ruined whatever right there was in his life. I have vowed to make him realize that. Clara and Johnson came to talk to me about their entire situation only when they heard that we were getting a divorce. I'm sure it was Smith who informed them about it. He probably begged them to talk to me about it, and I'm pretty sure he had not informed his parents about the reason it was going to happen. Even so, when they came to our place to talk about it, I outrightly told them everything. I had no reason to lie or hide the truth. It created a bit of tension between the parents and son. Clara and Johnson have their issues going on, but I believe they have some moral standpoints. Cheating is apparent, even in their dictionaries, and imagine what they could have done and then double that consequence. Because the cheating scandal would hurt their family name. They begged me to consider some things, and I refused to move. I had parental support and did not need Clara and Johnson's help or support. Not at all. I did not even pretend to, and I informed them of my plans. I was going to file for divorce. It was that simple, and child support. Both Samantha and Alexa would stay with me. I even promised that I would not allow any of the Smith family members to meet up with my daughters, and that came as a great shock to Clara and Johnson. Sure, they were greedy for my money, but they still had grown close to Samantha and Alexa, and the idea that they would not be able to meet them anymore probably hurt them, but I didn't care. I've spent too much time tending to my relationship with this family and have no interest in keeping that up. To let them know how serious I was about it, I left home with my daughters and stayed at my parents' home until our case was getting discussed in court. Throughout it, I simply did not allow anyone to meet Samantha and Alexa. I have not allowed even Amelia to come close to them. If there's someone who the kids have missed, it's Clara and Johnson. Although I feel guilty about how this thing went down and has affected my babies, I understand the importance of cutting off ties with negative people. None of the 4 people I'm about to leave in my past have any potential of rightness in them, and I've decided it's better to keep them away. Samantha and Alexa are kids right now, and I'm sure by the time they grow up, they will have come to love better people. Clara throws a little tantrum over the entire situation, but I insist it would not have happened had her son behaved. I could deal with other issues, but not with what Smith have done. My insistence that this all would not have happened if not for Smith must have done something, because the next time I heard about the family, it's certainly not in a good light. I'll inform you about whatever I know in the next update, which will probably be the last. I've got rid of them. I think I have salvaged some parts of it, if not all. Update number 4. This is the final post by OP. Okay, since I left it hurriedly, I will inform you what I heard about Smith and his sister. Amelia, after the divorce and despite my economic situation, Smith was ordered to pay child support until Samantha and Alexa turned 18. If not entirely, then this will leave some financial strain on him and his family. I do not know if he's still keeping up with the affair with his colleague, but I know one thing: our divorce only has brought an unsalvageable rift in the Smith family. How do I explain that Clara and Johnson have left Smith out of their will? They have, and I assume it has more to do with the fact that he cheated and hurt everyone around him, and that they'll no longer be able to meet Samantha or Alexa. With only his little job to keep up, Smith has found a little home downtown. I'm sure, about the condition of the home is unknown, and Amelia, on the other hand, gets little help from her parents. Neither Clara nor Johnson is happy with her behavior, and after I informed them how I found out about Smith's affair, they got more upset with their own daughter. It was no longer a matter of money. They were merely disgusted by their children's behavior, and I did not understand the point of this all. Children became what their parents are, if not entirely. Clara and Johnson have played roles in how their children have grown up. I did not even have anything to do with it. The greedy family dug their grave themselves. They destroyed whatever was left of their family, and I had nothing to do with it. I believe my hands are clean. As for me, life has been pretty comfortable. My boutique chain is still doing well, and I opened another branch in a little city. Samantha and Alexa are in school, and we stay with my parents. Yes, it'll indeed take me a while to get over the decade-long drama, but I'm glad I have both my daughters by my side. It helps that my parents are supportive and understanding of the situation. They have always been better grandparents and continue to prove the same. I feel less anxious about my daughters now. None of the past can hurt them any longer, and that's what matters to me most. So it looks like Smith has been cut from the will, and he doesn't have a good relationship with his family anymore. He also has to pay child support for the 2 children of OPs. So I do want to hear from you guys. Do you think Smith got the type of karma that he truly deserved? I mean, even his parents, who were not the best of people, they could even admit, hey man, you've gone way too far with this. We don't think that you should ever be a cheater. So even the parents could see right through Smith and knew how toxic he truly was. But I do want to hear from you guys. The question was, do you think Smith got everything that he deserved? Drop your comments down below in the comment section. I love to listen to you guys, read your comments, respond to them. It's one of my favorite things to do, to see the viewer's opinion. So go ahead, I'll see you in the comment section. If you guys are new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every single day. If you want to be a part of these drama stories, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.